What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Buckeye Roast. It's your boy Ron James here with my guy QP Ski, and we have a special guest again. Our guy Anon has joined us to preview the game. Anon has been on the show. What? This is your third appearance here on the show. Did a preseason preview, a midseason check-in, and it was only right we had our guy back to preview the biggest game of the year, guys. How was your holiday?
So first, mine was cool. Unnecessary driving all around every side of Phoenix, but it was cool. Got to hang out with my boys from back home. They're out here, so a little traveling. Got some free food. Can't complain. And played some space last night. Ain't take no L's, so we good.
Ooh, flex.
It was good, man. But I mean, obviously, this week all we can think about is this. All year long, all we can think about is this. So it's like, yeah, eating, drinking was great yesterday, but it's time to get into it.
Absolutely. It was nice to see the family and have a meal before you go to war because that's what it feels like we're getting ready for. These past 2 years have been absolutely insufferable with these piss skunks and dealing with Michigan fans. Like I am so ready for this game. I feel like I'm on the team. Like I'm ready to get this monkey off my back because it feels like I personally lost to Michigan 2 years in a row. It's like Mean Girls. Raise your hand if you've been victimized by Regina George. Like I can't take it anymore. Like I'm ready to have my bragging rights back. Like we've spent a year in media with no bragging rights covering one of the best rivalries in all of sports, and it's like if we would have started this any other year, we would have had the greatest amount of bragging rights. And right now, we are in the fucking probably worst time to be doing this. So it's time for us to fucking take this rivalry back over. And I think the Buckeyes get it done on Saturday. What are your biggest concerns going into this game? I know everyone's confident right now, but what are you guys worried about going into this game?
I know you take first. I've had a lot of time to talk on here.
All good. I think they're never going to be on the field at the same time, and a lot's going to be made out of Kyle McCord, JJ McCarthy, kind of what they've put together this season, mainly what they've looked like in the last month, right? Because if you ignore what they did before and kind of take the product of what they've been the last month, Ohio State fans, we all should be a little more confident than we would have been at the end of October. Um, that being said, I think it's you're talking about two elite of the elite defenses by any metric, whether you want to use points per game, yards per game. They're 1-2 in the country in just about everything. So possessions matter, and my biggest concern is the same thing that it always is. It's turnovers, and anytime Parker Fleming's unit is on the field.
I hear that, man. We are always down to fire Parker Fleming around here, and it seems like we are due for a special teams blunder every game. I'm hoping Saturday we are able to avoid one of those. Which quarterback do you think is more susceptible to turn the ball over on Saturday?
I think Kyle takes more risks with the throws that he makes than JJ does. A lot of the JJ stuff that he does is very similar to like a Kyle Shanahan product in the NFL, where a lot of the stuff is made relatively easy for him, and he's great at executing what they ask him to do. But Kyle's probably got a little more gunslinger in him. And so, in a game like this where one possession goes one way, you get a pick six or you get, an ill-advised fumble that can turn a game around. I'm a little bit more concerned about McCord than I would be McCarthy, but that also comes with the downside of Michigan's run game going to have to carry a lot for JJ, where Kyle's going to be able to carry an offense if he needs to.
Yeah, Q, what about you?
I would say Kyle. I don't know about Gunslinger. More like fuck it, he's over there. Sometimes he'll throw the triple coverage. It don't matter. But yeah, like I said yesterday, I think Kyle's a little more risky with the ball. I think JJ has a lot less risk throws. He'll take one-on-ones. He'll take check downs. He's not really putting the ball in danger. So I would expect if somebody has more turnovers, it would be Kyle.
So we talked about it earlier on the show this week about the importance of the run game. I know Tom Moore wrote an article a few years back, and it's holding true like almost 5 years later that for over the past almost 25 years, whoever has won the battle on the ground and has rushed for more yards has won this game. How big of a factor do you think the run game is going to be in Saturday's game, and who do you think wins that battle?
I don't think that this is the first year in a long time that I think there is no decided advantage because Ohio State's found their run game. That was the question that we had midseason when we checked in, right? Is where is the run game? Are we going to have Kyle carry the entire offense all season long? We knew that probably wasn't sustainable. They'd have to find it at some point, and they have. And the interesting part is Michigan is running the ball to survive. They're not, it's not their run game of old where they're just pummeling people every single play. I mean, they did it to Penn State out of necessity, not because that's what they wanted to do. But I think between the two of them, these are about as two evenly matched run games as we've seen in this game in probably a decade. And that's why it's so compelling is you've got two truly elite defenses, two truly really solid run games. And I think it's going to be kind of like last year, where if you look at the profile of Michigan's run game, they really weren't super successful running the ball outside of the plays that went for huge chunks. And so if you can one way or the other, something's got to give. Either the yards per carry is going to go up on average and they're not going to get the big runs, or you're going to have a similar product to what you had last year, which is, a 2 or 3 big plays swung that game entirely. I think if you're looking for the more consistent run game, it's probably Michigan's, but I think Ohio State's got more with Trey back and healthy. I think he's probably a little bit more of a home run hitter than Corum is at this point. But again, we didn't. This game, one of the weird parts about playing this game every year is to throw almost everything out because JJ showed no ability to do the things he did through the air last year. Donovan Edwards was not that on the ground for Michigan last year, and they both showed up in the game. So big Trey Henderson day, and I think another guy that gets a lot of love sometimes and not so much at others. Cade Stover's got to have a big day, and I don't just mean catching the ball. He's going to be having some of those double team blocks on edge rushers. He's going to have to, set up blocks in the screen game, in the run game. He's one of the biggest factors, I think, in that game period. Him and Colston Loveland, what Michigan's going to ask him to do. I think the tight ends play a huge role in what team has the most offensive success on Saturday.
Hugh?
Yeah, I talked about a guy on the team. He wears number 32 at the beginning of the year. Didn't get a lot of love from the other co-hosts here, but this is TreVeyon Henderson game, man.
I've been saying Trey. No, don't talk about me. I've been on the Trey train as well.
About week 5, Ron Biden came around. But nah, man, I think this is a big-time game for TreVeyon Henderson to establish himself as one of the best backs in the country, which he has shown, but not against an elite defense where everybody's going to be like, oh, okay. Like, he's for real. I think this is the game for that, man. He's got a lot of pop into him. I expect him to break some runs. I think we talked about, does he go over 100 yards? And I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Give me it, because I feel like he'll have 1 or 2 big runs in this game. So I think this is his time, man. Last season, we looked over and we saw Donovan Edwards going for 80, and we're like, oh, damn, wish you had a guy who's doing that. That would be very helpful right now. And now we have the guy. So if the offensive line plays well like they have, I think this is a TreVeyon Henderson legacy game, along with Kyle McCord, who I bet earlier in the week. So keep myself honest.
So we had a discussion about the tackling last year, and you brought up the explosive plays and how the Buckeyes had them bottled up in the run game for the most part, except for those explosive plays. Do you have any concerns about the Buckeyes reverting to themselves of their versions of the past and having issues tackling? Because I feel like that was one of the biggest concerns last year was the Buckeyes were giving up explosive plays because of missed tackles. Are you confident in the Buckeyes to be able to limit those explosive run plays this year? Because we've seen them be able to limit it for the most part all year. They only gave up 1 play over 40 yards, and it was a trick play. So I'm interested to see if they're able to get those stops this Saturday. Do you think they're going to be able to get it done tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily worried about explosive plays being the issue again, because if you hammer something to death over and over again, we saw this in 2018 when Dwayne Haskins was in town, and you saw Ohio State run mesh to death and hang 60 on Michigan, and then they came back the next year with a plan. Don Brown came back with a plan to take all of that away, and instead of running mesh, they ran basically everything else and to all kinds of success. So it just shows you, that there are overcorrections to be made, especially when the result isn't what you wanted it to be. And obviously we as fans get to sit here and talk our shit and not really face any of the consequences of making those decisions. But I think that this year what they've showed is, one, they're a really consistent unit, both run and pass. The pass defense is among the best, if not the best in America. Michigan is going to have to run to win this game. And if you had told someone that in the offseason, they would have laughed and be like, yeah, of course. But that's a tougher challenge than it looked like it would be earlier this season. The interior of Ohio State's defensive line is better than anything Michigan's seen all year. And I think when you look at kind of year 2 of Knowles and how his system works and the guys that he's asking to make plays, the addition, we talked about this preseason, the addition of the athleticism that someone like a Sonny Styles brings and allows you to use multiple defensive fronts, but just basically move him all over the place, allows you to do some things that last year they just simply couldn't do. And I think they're both defensives in this game are going to be relatively aggressive because they know one defensive play is probably going to swing this game one way or the other. We saw it in 2016. And we've seen it several times since where, Ohio State's defense has come up with the plays that have won the game. So I think this week, tomorrow in particular, everybody is looking for their confirmation bias. If you're of the opinion, and we have a lot of them in our fan base that wants to be negative about everything, you're waiting for Ohio State to give up a 40-plus yard play that they haven't really given up all year as validation to say, I told you so, because you want to be right. They haven't done it, though. There's no evidence that Ohio State's going to get gashed on the ground through the air at all. It's just really there are 3 things that I'd really going back to concerned about. Kyle McCord keeping the football, because when he's been asked to do things and he hasn't turned the ball over, he's been really productive. Trey Henderson, will he get the time in the lanes against a really good Michigan run defense? And then the other part of it is, just special teams plays. If we get a disaster or two, that can absolutely swing a game like this. When you have preseason, this game total was in the 60s. It's not there anymore. This profiles is one of those old school Jim Tressel, Lloyd Carr kind of games. And so points are at a premium here, man.
Yeah, man, I said it all week. I was like, if Jim Knowles rolls out with the same game plan as last season, I will not be mad. Just think about this defense. You're taking out undrafted free agents and basically putting in draft picks. So the personnel is leveled up. And last season, I felt like we were a little more gap sound. Even they might have not got the last 2 runs. Just guys got out or got blocked. And that habit and defense got worn down because the offense had so small time of possession. So I would be happy with that. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm like, hey, man, we got Sonny Styles. This whole secondary is all pros. I don't see guys running into each other and falling over, some Pop Warner level stuff. So I'd be happy with him just rolling out that same defense, is like just dust it off and like, all right, guys, let's do this again.
I hear you there. When we talked about the Penn State game earlier this year, we talked about the difference in skill on the edge when it comes to wide receiver play. And I feel like that talent gap carries over to this game. I know there was a lot of hype of Roman Wilson, and I was buying into the hype early in the season. People putting graphics of Roman Wilson stats next to Marvin Harrison Jr. saying, oh, what's going on here? Well, I haven't seen those statistics put side by side by any Michigan fans in recent weeks, because we all know what that looks like. And I think that's going to be a big difference in the game on Saturday. I think that the skill on the edge and the wide receiver play for the Buckeyes is significantly better than the Wolverines. I know they have a really good secondary, but I feel like this is the game-breaking difference between these 2 teams. What are your guys' thoughts on the wide receivers for the Buckeyes, and how big of a day do you expect for them tomorrow?
The guy that I'm looking at, and it seems like every Ohio State-Michigan game that Ohio State wins has a freshman coming out party. We saw it with Garrett Wilson. We saw it with Olave. We've seen it with multiple guys now. And the guy that I'm looking at is Carnell Tate, because as you look at this Michigan DB room, right, because the receivers aren't ever going to be on the field at the same time. So it's more wide receiver versus DB matchups. And I think that, Michigan's probably going to try and attack Hancock and Igbinosun with Cornelius Johnson and potentially Loveland as well. And I think Ohio State's going to probably, avoid Will Johnson, when he's not on Marv, because there's no one on earth that you really wouldn't throw to 18 against. But when if he's not going to follow Marv all over the field, if he is going to get some snaps on Emeka, if he is going to get snaps on Carnell or Ennis or whoever's out there, I think one of the things that they're going to try and take advantage of is Carnell and Emeka are probably the best 2, 3, and even if you go to Fleming 4, that you're going to find on a college football team basically ever. I mean, the fact that Cornell Tate is pushing for snaps against what was the number one overall player just 3 years ago, and a really productive player this year for us in Julian. It speaks volumes. There is one significant difference between JJ and Kyle in this game. And it may have been true last year, but it's definitely true this year. Kyle has a get out of jail free card in 18 that JJ just doesn't have. And so if it's going to be a Roman Wilson day, if it's going to be a Cornelius Johnson day, they're going to have to win outright. Ohio State's DBs are probably going to have, if they're the reason that Ohio State loses this game, it's going to be because the DBs didn't quite match up with them. But there is a get out of jail free card that basically no one else in America has. When in doubt, you'll see it all over the timeline. I guarantee you, Saturday, the first 3rd and 6 that we see, it's going to be throw to 18 across the timeline. And it's basically a fan base shouting in unison, throw the ball up to that dude. Who cares what happens after that?
Yeah, no, I'm buying stock in that. My guy who I've said all week is Emeka Egbuka being back. Obviously, coming into the season, he's talked as the second best receiver. Hasn't quite lived up to those expectations with the amount of injury time he's had, not really had a chance to prove himself. But last week, he comes back, he looks explosive, he looks fast. They're finding ways just to give him the ball, throwing him tosses, sweeps, might take some snaps at quarterback. But I think Emeka Egbuka is the guy who needs to have a big-time game. I feel like they're going to put a safety over the top, put Will Johnson on Marv and say, all right, throw it in double coverage, throw in the triple because you're going to have to. And Emeka is the guy in the slot who's going to have the open space, get the one-on-ones, maybe a one-on-one with a safety or a linebacker and expose the defense. So that's the guy I'm buying stock in going into this game.
Sorry, I was stuck looking at the chat. No, I think in regards to the wide receiver play, I think that Emeka could potentially have a big game here and play himself back into the first round. I know a lot of people forgot about him due to his injury, and I think this is an opportunity for him to have a big game. So I'm going to have my eyes on Emeka Egbuka on Saturday. As far as the battle in the trenches, who do you guys give the advantage to on the offensive line in this matchup?
I think that's a really strange question that I would not have answered the same way 4 weeks ago that I do now. Michigan's tackles have actively been bad against teams that they've really needed to pass against. And it's led to, Penn State, great example, 32 straight runs to end the game. Now, that's great. If you can win games that way, that's great. But Ohio State's defensive interior is not Penn State. Penn State's really good. This Ohio State unit is one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country. And asking Corum and Edwards to run into stacked boxes all day is a recipe for a really long afternoon for Michigan. I think they're closer than people want to acknowledge. I think if you're talking about pure pass pro, I'd probably give the advantage to Ohio State. Pure run blocking, I'd probably give the advantage to Michigan. Overall, it's kind of a wash, as a lot of these things are, which is why, I find this matchup so much more compelling than games in years past, even though it probably will be a little lower scoring. The game within the game is going to be a lot of fun here. But I think advantage Michigan in run blocking, advantage Ohio State in pass blocking.
Yeah, I'll probably go the same way. I mean, I think Ohio State has very much leveled up their run blocking because honestly, their pass blocking has been pretty good all season, where we expected that to be the sort of tough part and the run blocking to be the stronghold. So I get an advantage to Ohio State. Unfortunately for Michigan, they lost their O-line coach and Connor Stallions a couple weeks ago. So that sets them back just a little bit. But yeah, I get the advantage to Ohio State. I think they don't have the consistent, like we're opening up holes and just dominating a defensive line. But I think certainly if they hit their groove and they open holes, and Trey only needs a couple opportunities, man. Even Chip only needs a couple opportunities to really pop one. So I give advantage to Ohio State on the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you as far as the answer to this question almost changing, because it feels like the Buckeyes offensive line has been getting better and better each week. And I think even in the run game, they might have the advantage here because the Buckeyes run game has looked significantly more explosive than the Michigan run game these past few weeks. And it seems like the Buckeyes have really leveled up their run blocking. And that seemed to be one of the biggest concerns early on in the season. We were talking about every time we turn on the film, we're not seeing our linemen getting pushed to the ground. We're seeing them stand around like this. Like, I don't know who I was supposed to block there, and I feel like I haven't seen anyone give that signal. I don't know if Connor Stallions has that on his play sheet, but I haven't seen that signal on the field in quite a few weeks. So I'm glad to see that they seem to have some of these communication issues handled on the offensive line. And I think the Buckeyes are going to surprise some people with their physicality on Saturday, because a lot of people think this offensive line is weak and haven't really been watching these past few weeks, and it's significantly improved. As far as the tight ends, you brought up Colston Loveland and Cade Stover. Cade has been Kyle McCord's safety blanket almost the entire season, and I think it's going to be imperative for him to continue to have success this week against Michigan, especially in the pass game. What are your thoughts on Ohio State's defense matching up with the Michigan tight ends? I swear every time I turn on a Michigan game, Loveland is making a play, so I'm interested to see how big of an impact he can have on Saturday.
I think that's kind of the matchup that if I were Michigan, if I'm looking at this from the other side, if I'm looking at a matchup that I think I can exploit, I think, especially if they have some run success early, I think Loveland's going to be a guy that they're going to try and lean on to try and open up some of those matchups for Roman and for Cornelius Johnson. But again, it's kind of there's an element of if you go back a few years, there's an element of the Marcus Mariota Oregon offense to it, where if you stop the run, which is a huge task, it's not easy to stop Michigan's run game, but if you stop the run, the offense can completely grind to a halt, because so much of what they do with McCarthy and getting him on the edge and booted out, and a lot of those sail throws to Loveland that they really enjoy and they're very, very good at. They get to them by establishing the run early, and that's all based off of that. So I think if you're Ohio State and you're looking at it that way, the best thing that you can do early is hit them in the mouth in the run game, create that brick wall up front, and force them to throw on downs that they have to throw. Create 3rd and 8s, 2nd and 11s, and force them to put the ball in the air before they want to instead of when they can. And I think that's going to be your best way to take away a Loveland, as opposed to playing scheme or coverage or matchups. It's more about taking away the run game to kind of force the tight end to be a secondary receiving threat instead of a primary one.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, Loveland worries me a little bit. My concern with this defense has always been the linebackers in the pass game, and then obviously because we're playing Michigan, filling their gaps. I think that's where you could expose them. I mean, we've seen it in multiple games this season. Indiana, Notre Dame, it was like, oh, yeah, y'all got linebackers, right? All right, let's scheme this up and let's go for it. So that's the one concern maybe I would have with Tommy coming back to this. We feel way more comfortable in the run game and stopping that run initially. Like I said, as long as guys are gap sound, I don't expect this run offense from Michigan to do absolute damage like they did at the end of the game last season. But in the pass game, it worries me a little bit. But I know Jim knows will have a plan for it. If we stop the run, that makes it that much harder to play action and for him to work off of that. So, I mean, I feel comfortable with Jim knows having a plan in this game. But I got a question for both of y'all. On the opposite end with Cade Stover.
Before we jump in, can we get to the super chat real quick?
Go ahead, then I got you after.
Our guy, Alpha Male. If anyone needs directions to Ann Arbor, head north till you smell dog shit and west until you step in it. Trey gets 165 plus 2 TDs, Marv 1 TD, Cade or Emeka 1 TD. And he said he was having issues with the super chat not allowing him to say this, so we got to get it on the screen for him. Couldn't say it in super, so I will say it here. Fuck scum. And I felt like we had to get to that before we move on. Big shout out to our guy, Alpha Male, always showing love in the chat. We appreciate it, and absolutely fuck that team up north. Your question, Q.
Nah, yeah, good to get that up there. We appreciate you. So we famously talked, I think this was in our first show together, about the Cade Stover other side. We had a 4th and 2 last year, and we threw the 1-on-1 to Cade Stover. With all Cade Stover has done this season, Mr. Reliable, making catches, getting open. If we have another 4th and 2 at about the 25-yard line, and we throw the Cade Stover, will you be comfortable with that? I'll start with you, Rob.
No. What, you want to know why? Because I just saw that play the other day, the one in the back of the end zone where it's right in Cade's hands and then it's just knocked away. And who's that knocked away by? little Mike Sanders who still fucking plays for Michigan. Like, and I watch him every Saturday, and I'm like, I don't understand how he's so fucking good. And he looks even better than he was last year. And while Cade is significantly improved, so is little Mike. So I'm not betting against, even though he's Farmer Gronk and he's bigger than him significantly, I'm not betting against little Mike, man. Stay away from him. You have 18, a generational fucking talent. Get it to him.
This is going to be contrary to everything that, conventional wisdom would tell you in coaching and playing and being a fan. Yeah, 4th and 2, you're throwing to 18, and it doesn't matter if they triple cover him. And a part of the reason is, and we've benefited from this in years past, and we've been on the other side of this in years past. But once someone breaks out as kind of a generational talent, when you're talking about guys that are top 3 NFL draft picks, the way that they're officiated is a little bit different. Fair or unfair, the refs are human. They're inherently biased. They're going to be. It's probably more likely that 18 gets a call than Cade Stover does if you throw it in that situation. And that's a big part of why I would just say, screw it, throw to 18. Not that I'm saying I wouldn't trust Cade in that spot, but when you have 18, you throw to 18.
That's good. I just wanted to ask. I know that's Ron's play that he liked to refer to at the beginning of the game. So I want to see if that come full
Nightmares,
circle.
man. Nightmares. They ran that same play against Georgia, and he dropped it again.
I remember, one of the funniest parts is preseason when we did this, when we were talking about it. I was like, it's going to look ugly. Because what we saw out there in August was an offense that was clearly a work in progress, a line that was a work in progress, freak wide receivers, we knew that, breaking in a new quarterback. But that defense looked like something that we hadn't seen in a while. And, everybody around there was talking about how if they needed them to, the defense could carry them until the offense figured it out. And here we are. Everybody was yelling the sky is falling after Indiana because we didn't score 70 and beat them by, 18 scores. Fought really hard fought game at Notre Dame that I think that for the most part, they probably outplayed us and we found a way to win. Penn State was your traditional, we squeeze the life out of you, you have no offense game. And so it's interesting to find kind of a team in Michigan that has a really similar blueprint to what they do. Generational defense, really solid run game. It's coming on at the right time. And a quarterback that you have belief in, you really like, but you're waiting to see him really do it on that biggest stage. And, people will go back to that game against TCU and, justifiably so. There are a lot of really interesting storylines here, but I think chief among them is there's really been one opportunity all season for Kyle McCord to have a, game-winning drive. How valuable is that experience, especially as you're going into – not that Notre Dame wasn't a hostile environment. That's one of the toughest places to win in college football, but it's entirely different when you're talking about the game up there. If we're down 3, down 4 late in the game, I think there's a little source of inspiration there. Hey, we've done this before, even though, it's not quite the same, but, they at least got tested early enough in the season that, they could build on that. And so obviously a lot more confident now than we would have been 2 months ago.
Absolutely. I feel like this team is your typical Ryan Day team that shows flaws early on in the season and seems to round into form towards the end of the year. We've watched this a few times, and it seems like they've rounded into form only to get fucking pounded by Michigan in the final game of the season. And that's why I'm just like so hesitant to everything that my eyes have shown me tells me that the Buckeyes should be fine. And it's weird, Vegas is on Michigan, the models are on Michigan, and I'm like, I don't know if my glasses are too tinted scarlet and I just can't see it, but I watch these teams, I'm like, the Buckeyes should be favored, even if it's in Ann Arbor. I think this defense is going to cause significant problems for J.J. McCarthy, and I think that's going to be the difference in the game on Saturday. I wanted to ask you guys, I wanted to get to some bold predictions before the game. Do you guys have any bold predictions for Saturday on offense for the Buckeyes?
I would say that, I think it's, we go back to it. I think it's the Carnell Tate game. I think that he's the guy that goes for probably 65 to 80 yards in the score. I think that every year they try to maximize a skill set that we just haven't seen, whether it's train them in the run game, whether it's, back in the day when it was Garrett Wilson as a freshman. Um, you can go back further. Every time that there is a program defining win against Michigan, it feels like you get a really special performance out of an offensive freshman. And I think Carnell Tate's the guy. It's pretty clear that he's the guy for them. And so I think that he's going to be the one that they kind of rely on to be the trick in the bag, and hopefully he pulls it out for us.
Yeah, I said it earlier in the week, and I'm hoping I don't get clipped up and end up all over the timeline. But
timestamp.
Yeah,
30 minutes and 36 seconds. Continue.
94 minutes, 22 seconds is the ball. But I've called this the Kyle McCord legacy game, man. I think he actually is going to come out and ball out Saturday. We seen it in Notre Dame game. I mean, he almost threw a pick on the final drive, so I did not forget. But he showed us
airmailed 2 screen passes before that. But
we can leave that part out.
Everyone thinks that drive started on the first 4th down.
Oh yeah, it did not. No, absolutely.
No, he didn't look exactly great there, but I was expecting him to learn from his mistakes. And if we need him in big time moments in this game, I expect him to make the throws. I'm just calling it out. I expect him to be inconsistent in this game instead of consistent as he's been all season, because the rivalry does that. We get into this game every year and things just change. We're like, oh, we have a good defense. Wait, no, we don't. Oh, we can't run the ball. Oh, wait, yeah, we can. So they just end up changing in this game, and it happens year in, year out. So I would expect something to turn on something to Kyle McCord. He's like, bro, I'm just about to go out, put my big red boots on, and go ball out and throw a few TDs in this game. So that's my bold prediction.
Yeah, my bold prediction is 0 turnovers from Kyle McCord. I feel like he comes into Ann Arbor confident and knows what he needs to get done, regardless of everything that he's heard from outside noise, the struggles that he's had earlier in the season, the doubters, the nicknames. He can put all of that to rest on Saturday with a win. If he ends this 2-year drought against the team up north and is able to silence these obnoxious motherfuckers, he will be loved in Columbus forever, regardless of how this season plays out, regardless of what people remember early in the season, and rightfully so, because, I mean, despite all his struggles, he got the Buckeyes here to an 11-0 season, and all of their goals are still on the table, and if he's able to get that victory, the last 2 goals will still be on the table, and I think they'll be heavy favorites in the Big Ten championship, and then we'll be able to compete for a national title, and I feel like that's all you can really ask for from your starting quarterback at Ohio State. I mean, C.J. Stroud, potentially a generational quarterback, was not able to get it done in the national championship. So I don't know if Kyle is able to beat Michigan and win a Big Ten championship, how much you're going to be able to hold against him, because at the end of the day, he's could potentially accomplish more than C.J. Stroud did as far as hardware at Ohio State. So I think Kyle has everything that he's wanted still in front of him, regardless of any mistakes, doubters, or criticism that he's received this year. And this is an excellent opportunity for him to become a Buckeye legend, and I'm rooting for him, and I can't wait to see what he puts on the field on Saturday. What about on the defensive side of the ball? Any bold predictions there?
I think it's the Jack Sawyer game. We've waited and waited and waited and seen flashes here and really special moments here and there. Michigan's tackles, especially pass pro, have not been what we thought they might be. And, JTT is going to have his games, as we've seen. Michael Hall has been a revelation. Tyleik Williams has been incredible. It's time. Jack Sawyer has 2+ sacks and, kind of changes a few of those Michigan drives, and kind of what's really a coming out party, as many have had before.
Yeah, I'm a ride with this. I haven't brought this one yet, but I'm gonna ride with my guy Josh Proctor to get the game sealing interception that they have no more hope interception. He owes me a couple this season, man. Like I said, my house on Proctor Island is turned into a mansion with a yacht, all that. That's why you invest early. So he's looked good. I need one more just to close out this season for one more I told you so. So I'm gonna go Josh Proctor with an interception, maybe mid-4th, to be like, yeah, they got no hope left.
I talked about earlier in the week, I said this is a Jim Knowles legacy game, and I think this is time for Jim Knowles to call the defense and put the defense on the field that everyone thought he had last year. I feel like Q said it, hit the nail on the head earlier as far as Jim Knowles had the scheme. He just didn't have the Jimmies and Joes. And I feel like he has them this year, and I feel like Jim Knowles is going to be able to go out there and put on a masterclass defensively. And that's what I've described this defense as in Jim Knowles' defensive play calling. Almost every game we get on here, and I say defensive masterclass. And if it wasn't for all these motherfuckers in the Big Ten that keep making 50-plus yard field goals, they need to get these niggas in the NFL because it's unfucking believable. These kickers in the Big Ten, I'm watching motherfuckers make $8 million a year in the NFL missing kicks on Thanksgiving on national TV, and it seems like every week I'm watching someone in the Big Ten kick a fucking 54-yard field goal against one of the best defenses we've seen in college football this season, blowing every single one of our shutouts this season because some guy wants to come out here and be Legatron and blast these fucking field goals. It's been insane. But I think this week the Buckeyes are able to get it done. I think Jim Knowles is vindicated. He will get all of the apologies on the timeline. I will take the batteries out of the clock. I might even throw the clock away. Like I'm ready to apologize to Jim Knowles and his entire family if they get it done on Saturday. So my bold prediction is Jim Knowles continues his run of master classes, calling this defense, and we have a stout defensive performance against the team up north on Saturday. One last question before we get out of here. I got to get your guys' score predictions. Mine has not wavered. Q, I don't know if yours has changed since you've had a little bit of turkey and gravy in you, if your mind has switched up, and if you've changed your prediction since we last talked. But Anand, what is your prediction for the game here on Saturday?
Give me Ohio State 24-20. And I think it's going to be a very low-scoring fourth quarter where neither team tries to give it away. It's going to be tight all the way to the end. I don't think there's going to be a lot. I think anything that gets figured out in the second and third quarters, and the first and fourth are relatively low-scoring. So give me the Bucks in a really close one and kind of a game that reverses a lot of narratives about how tough this team is.
If you're right, I'm going to need the cardiologist on standby tomorrow because I don't know if I can handle a game too close because your boy is going to be stressing. How about you?
You know me, I stand on business. You know, I'm not wavering. I already did it earlier. I've said it actually, and I want to ask you this before we get out of here, but I'll get mine first. I think the magic in the score for us is 30. If we get to 30, we can't lose, and that's not only for this game; it's for the rest of the season. But so I'm gonna go 30-24. I think we get it done. A couple field goals in there, and we strive out. But Ron had talked about earlier in the week, and we were kind of talking about in the season, the kind of magic number for this defense. He's put the number at 17 so far. I know you said Michigan scores 20, but what do you think for going for the rest of the season? The magic number is for defense. If you were to put a points to say, hey, we go to Michigan, we play Georgia later, or we play Alabama or Texas, what's the magic number for this defense? As you've seen, we haven't given up more than 17 all season.
I think realistically, we've played really good teams and some pretty solid offenses. Nobody that profiles is kind of, what an Oregon would bring or what Georgia would bring. And so I think you kind of have to adjust for that. I would say 17 against most teams that we play on our schedule. Maybe 3 for Iowa, but against anybody else, I would say probably somewhere in that 24-28 range. And I don't think you're wrong to say 30 is the magic number for the offense, where they probably shouldn't lose if they score 30. I would really think that it would have to be a couple of defensive turnovers, special teams plays, stuff like that to get someone over 30 against this defense the way that they've looked. But I would say somewhere between that 24-28 number. If you get there consistently, the odds that you lose a game are very, very slim with a defense this good.
If they score 30 points on us on Saturday, I'm telling you now, I will vomit. Like, you heard it here first. If we have 30 points scored on us, I will vomit.
If we win a game like 38-30, everybody's going to lose their minds because they're going to be like, well, can you do this again against Georgia or Oregon? It's so funny because all anybody wanted is, hey, like, we'll take a little bit of a step back in the offense. We'll be fine. It's Ryan. He'll figure it out. we want a defense. And then everybody starts complaining about the offense as soon as they get exactly what they wanted, you know? So
Everybody
it's always
expected a
fun,
Death Star.
right? It's well, we want the Dwayne Haskins offense with Jim Knowles defense. Guys, it's a complimentary game. It doesn't work that way. You're not going to get 15 possessions if you play defense the way that we play defense. It's just not going to happen. And especially if we run the ball the way we're running the ball later in the year. So, yeah, I think limited possessions. I think it's going to be really a throwback to a different era. Kind of look a lot like a game from 20 years ago, which is great. You know, we'll score against other teams. Michigan's defense is really, really good, and I really don't think that they're going to get into like the high 30s, 40s. These defenses are just way too good. And yeah, that preseason number of 63.5. If you got the under, that's what 17 points of value, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
God bless you if you have a preseason over ticket at 63.5. That's not getting there.
Yeah, you are cooked there. We got one more super chat to get to before we get out of here. Our guy, big boy, Ron killed me with the Legatron joke, man. Yeah, man. It seems like every week that we're out there, I'm like, man, we're about to get off the field. There's no way they make this field goal, and then they just smack one. So I feel like we have seen like the murderer's row of kickers as far as kickers in college football, because some of these guys look better than the guys on Sundays. As far as my score prediction, man, I'm going to stick to it. And if I'm wrong, it's just because I don't remember. I believe it is 27-14. That's the one that I'm going with. I think the Buckeyes are able to hold them under 17. I don't know if that's more of a wish or hope, but I'm going with 14. I don't have much faith in this offense putting up more than 30 points on the Michigan defense. I do think they are very stout on the defensive side of the ball, but I do think the Buckeyes get it done, and I am so hopeful that they do. And man, just know we are going to be so goddamn insufferable if the Buckeyes win, and I'm not letting up the entire year, 365. And just know if the Buckeyes lose, we will be right back here in the paint. Q will be on the Voice of College Football Ohio State channel for an instant reaction. I will be on Bleacher Report with Chris Drew for an instant reaction after the show. We will be in the paint regardless, either celebrating or trying to hide our tears on camera, but we will be in the paint. We appreciate our guy Nam for joining us for this special edition of the Buckeye Roast, the game preview the day after Thanksgiving, all of that good stuff. Guys, let the people know where they could find you.
Wait, can I sneak one more question before we get out of here?
Go ahead.
Because I haven't had the chance, John, and I want to get your reaction because I've seen you on the timeline, but I actually have never had the chance to ask you. What was your initial reaction to all the stuff Michigan had gone through the last few weeks? And obviously, what's the implications you think going forward into next season with their staff and obviously punishments and things like that? Because I never got a chance to ask you, so I wanted to know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, whenever you talk about Ohio State, Michigan, I wrote something this week. I'll probably bump it after this. Just talking about why we feel the way we feel about this game in particular and why this rivalry is different. We're all crazy. We're on Michigan's message boards trying to figure out, Venmo transactions. Like, this is beyond nuts, right? And I think part of it is fundamentally Ohio State and Michigan fans on the timeline have been arguing about whether what Michigan did was wrong, if the punishment's right, kind of all of that. They weren't punished for stealing signs. They were punished because they were advanced scouting and sending people to locations to record footage of teams that they were going to play in the future, not because they stole signs, right? So we'll get that out of the way. That being said, I've talked to people. They said that it's one of the most elaborate scandals that they've seen in terms of something like this. Not that it matters. Now, how much did it matter? How much did it not matter? I have no idea. I'm not out there calling plays. But I can tell you that, when you roll your quarterback out, as they like to roll McCarthy out, sure helps to know which side the blitz is coming from, if there is one coming. And so I think, you look at there are certain things you kind of go back and look at. Jim Knowles' defense cracking at the dams at certain spots last year. A few of the breakdowns that you saw in 21. How much of that was, aided by what they knew, didn't know. But I think a lot of it's going to come out when the NCAA does their stuff. And so I just advise, kind of like we said in the preseason about Ohio State's offense, wait and see. We have info, but we don't have everything. And once everything comes out, I think that's when we're going to get kind of a comprehensive answer. But I do know from talking to a few NFL teams and kind of people in those front offices that NFL teams really don't give a shit. Um, uh, their goal is to win, and sign stealing in the NFL is a very different thing than what we've got going on in college football. Will Jim Harbaugh be on the sidelines week 1 next year? I don't really know, but I know that he'll get. The agent's going to get a few phone calls about him, moving up a level or going back. But as far as the staff goes, we've seen there's always a fall guy, no matter what the situation is, regardless of what the evidence and scandal is, whatever the NCAA decides to do. There's always going to be a fall guy. Michigan's linebackers coach happened to be one of the fall guys here. I don't think Connor Stallions is necessarily a fall guy. I think, there's a lot of stuff that's going on there that's a little unorthodox. Anybody that writes a manifesto for a program and talks about, how they're going to bring it back is a little bit insane, and not to say that we don't have a few of those in our own fan base, but, giving that kind of guy that much power to, be on the sidelines and talking to people for just my end all be all is basically there is no quote unquote assistant that is screaming at OC, DCs, and head coaches on the sideline. Because if you tried that in high school ball, they're throwing your ass out.
Absolutely.
So take from that what you will.
I think the NCAA, when they finish their investigation, will be bringing the hammer down on Michigan. And again, I don't know if that's my critical thinking or if that's my hopes and dreams, but regardless, I'm rolling with the hammers coming down on them. But one more thing before we get out of here. Appreciate everyone that has supported us this entire season, all the guests that have joined us, all of the people that have watched the show. If you could smash that like button before we get out of here, it is a huge help for us. We're going to continue growing this channel. We got the question yesterday in the super chat. Are you guys going to continue to put out content in the off season? Absolutely. Are we going to be doing it before Ron goes to work in the mornings? Absolutely not. So we are going to be giving you the Buckeye Roast in the morning and tons of content. We're going to be doing movie content, college basketball content, of course, Buckeye content, just all kinds of different types of content. We will be keeping the content rolling here at BDMG all through the off season. It's just not going to be happening at the ass crack of dawn anymore because your boy needs to get some sleep after the season. We're going to keep waking up for you in the mornings through the season, hopefully all the way into January as we celebrate an Ohio State national championship and have plenty to talk to. But man, if they find a way to fuck this up, I promise you I'm taking a vacation in January and then we'll be back. Guys, let the people know where they could find you.
Yeah, at Neoduri NFL on Twitter. I host a show that's less frequent now called Decision Point with Matt Kelly, of the Podfather over at Player Profiler. And, obviously Buckeyes are a passion for me. It's not really much of a job on my end, much like it is for Q and Ron. They follow this stuff day to day, and I get stuff every so often just because I'm a fan. I'm sitting at Varsity Club right now, which is, OG for once you're an old head Buckeye fan, this is where you come for game day, and the vibe is good. There are people all around, as I'm sure you've seen going all around, and wearing the official shirt of game day. So it's great to be home, and I really hope Ohio State can pull this one out for us.
Is that where you're watching the game tomorrow?
I don't know yet. That's TBD. There's so many different people doing so many different things, and you know how it goes down here with a shotgun 6 a.m. start. so getting around place to place is going to be a challenge. There are going to be a lot of incoherent people on the streets by 9 a.m. I may or may not be among them. We'll see. But if you see me out somewhere, come say, hey, I will be wearing a shirt that has, Harbaugh and the Wolverines behind bars that says jail to the victors. So if you see me, come say hey.
If you see him out, don't be shy if you're in Columbus. For me, y'all know where to find me, man. I'm City Boy Quentin on Twitter. Not hard to find. Feel free to DM me, that follow. We can talk ball whenever. I'm Flying to Johnson on Instagram. I do talk movies at Minor League Film. So if you're in the movies, you want to check that out, come hang with me over there. Tomorrow I will be at Blonde Bottle. It's down in Scottsdale. So if you are anybody here is in the AZ area, it's a big Buckeye bar. I haven't been there yet. So I'm gonna go early. I know Ron and Chris are gonna put on the best college football pregame show of all time tomorrow. So I'm gonna try to get down there. I'm gonna interview some Buckeye fans. I'm gonna see what I can. I gotta ask Mike how he did it on his phone and got people on here, so I can definitely ask some questions early.
Q, you're in for a treat, man. That place is. There is nowhere like it. Report back on Monday. It's that's a different world. That is not a real place.
Yeah, I think Jay Book is pulling up too, so we're gonna link up there most definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. That's probably gonna be a movie. Like Chris or like Q said, I will be with Chris in Columbus tomorrow. We will be doing the Best Damn College Football pregame show live from Akron together. Our guy Mike is going to be in town. Des is gonna be there. Easy is gonna be there. We're gonna have a whole gang of people there. So make sure you tap in with us tomorrow morning before the game for the Best Damn College Football pregame show. We will also be live after the game in the Bleacher Report app for an instant reaction. Me and Chris Drew immediately after the game. Mike and Q will be on the Voice of College Football Ohio State channel for an instant reaction, so make sure you tap in there. And then, of course, the flagship on Sunday, the true instant reaction with all four of us, me, Mike, Q, and Cam, all for the Buckeye BS Sunday at 10 a.m. We appreciate you guys supporting us all season. The game is finally here. Go Bucks in OH.
Ayo.
My